If your only skill is doing exactly what you've been told, AI may be able to do it better than you within just a few years. That reality makes many people uneasy when they look at the terrifying speed at which artificial intelligence is developing today. Just a few years ago, if you were good at studying, memorized information quickly, and always gave the correct answers, you were considered to have a huge advantage. But today, ChatGPT can write essays in seconds. AI can solve math problems, code, design images, create videos, and even imitate human voices almost perfectly. For the first time in history, knowledge itself is no longer the rarest thing. And that leads to a frightening question. If AI can do almost everything, what still makes humans special? Perhaps the answer is not about how much information you know, but about how you think. AI is extremely good at generating answers based on existing data, but humans still possess something truly unique: the ability to imagine things that have never existed before, the ability to see problems from completely different perspectives, and the ability to create ideas that go beyond patterns machines can only learn to imitate. What's worth thinking about is that most of us spent years in school learning how to find the correct answer rather than learning how to ask new questions. We were praised for memorizing quickly, following formulas correctly, and repeating exactly what teachers taught us. Over time, many people began to believe that being intelligent meant never making mistakes. But real life works completely differently. In the real world, nobody hands you a clear question with 4 possible answers to choose from. There is no fixed formula for your career, your relationships, or your future. And that is why so many people who once performed extremely well in school feel lost when they enter the real world. They became used to following instructions, but were never truly trained to think independently. Meanwhile, the people who create major breakthroughs are often the ones willing to try completely different approaches. They do not just ask, "What is the answer?" They ask, "Is there a better way?" Perhaps the biggest problem with modern education is not a lack of knowledge, but the fact that it teaches many people to fear mistakes, fear being different, and slowly lose the natural curiosity they once had so strongly as children. There is a famous puzzle that has left many people stuck for hours. You have 6 matchsticks, and your task is to create 4 equilateral triangles using exactly those 6 matchsticks. It sounds simple, but most people immediately start thinking on a 2D surface. They rotate the sticks, move them around, try every possible arrangement, yet the harder they try, the more stuck they become. The interesting thing is that the problem is not intelligence. The problem is how the brain unconsciously creates limits for itself. From the very beginning, many people assume the solution has to stay on a flat surface, while the real answer exists in 3D space. By building the 6 matchsticks into a small pyramid, you instantly get 4 equilateral triangles. That moment of realization feels like your thinking has been unlocked. And perhaps life works in a similar way. Many people feel trapped not because they are incapable, but because they are looking at the problem from an overly familiar angle. Sometimes, what completely changes a person's future is not trying harder, but daring to see things in a way that is completely different from the crowd. One of the most frightening things about AI is that it can produce answers that sound incredibly intelligent, even when those answers are completely wrong. And that is changing the way humans will need to think in the future. In the past, the most important skill was finding information. But today, information appears everywhere within seconds. The real challenge is no longer how do we get answers, but how do we know whether those answers are actually correct? That is why critical thinking is becoming more valuable than ever before. In the age of AI, the people with the greatest advantage may not be the ones who know the most, but the ones who ask the best questions, the ones willing to question things that seem obvious, the ones who refuse to automatically accept everything just because it sounds convincing. Because sometimes A single good question can completely change the way you see the world. Perhaps in the future, education will no longer focus on memorizing huge amounts of knowledge, but instead focus on developing the ability to analyze, create, and think independently. If you're still watching at this point, leave a comment about something you believe AI will never be able to fully replace in humans. And don't forget to like the video if you want the channel to keep creating more content about psychology, human thinking, and the future of humanity in the age of AI. There is a fascinating pattern shared by many people who created major changes throughout history. They were often the ones willing to think differently from everyone else. While most people choose safety, stick to familiar routines, and try to blend into the crowd, creative individuals are willing to explore paths no one is certain will succeed. And that is far from easy. The human brain naturally fears failure and judgment. We crave acceptance and enjoy the feeling that we are doing the right thing like everyone around us. That is why so many people have interesting ideas but never actually act on them. They begin doubting themselves before they even start. But perhaps in the age of AI, the most valuable ability is the courage to think differently. Because if you only do what millions of other people are already doing, sooner or later, AI will learn to do it faster and more efficiently. Truly original ideas, on the other hand, often come from people curious enough to see the world from a completely different perspective. And sometimes, a single small shift in thinking can open a path that changes a person's entire life. Many people believe creativity is something reserved only for geniuses, but in reality, most valuable ideas come from ordinary life experiences. When you meet different kinds of people, step outside your familiar environment, try something new, or even fail at something, your brain begins connecting those experiences in completely new ways. That is often how creative ideas are formed. On the other hand, when someone lives the same routine every single day, their thinking can easily become trapped inside old patterns. Perhaps that is why people who stay curious about the world often recognize opportunities faster than others. They observe life more closely, ask more questions, and are not afraid to experiment with uncertain ideas. Many successful companies and important inventions did not begin with a perfect plan. They began because someone noticed a very real problem in everyday life and searched for a better way to solve it. And perhaps in the age of AI, real human experiences, personal perspectives, and the ability to deeply understand other people will become more difficult to replace than ever before. There is one skill becoming more important than almost any other in the age of AI: the ability to teach yourself and keep learning. The world is changing so quickly that what seems like a huge advantage today may become completely ordinary just a few years from now. Many jobs that were once considered stable are already starting to be automated, and a lot of people feel anxious as they realize technology is advancing faster than they expected. But what is interesting is that during every major period of change, there are always people who discover new opportunities instead of only seeing fear. The difference is that they never stop learning and adapting. Perhaps in the future, the people with the greatest advantage will not be the ones who know the most, but the ones who learn the fastest. The ones willing to change old ways of thinking, step into unfamiliar fields, and start over when necessary. Because when you maintain the ability to continuously learn, you are almost never truly stuck. And maybe the real danger is not how powerful AI becomes, but how many people stop developing themselves while the world continues changing every single day. In an era where technology can evolve at incredible speed, humans must also learn how to evolve faster than their old selves. In the end, perhaps the most fascinating question is not how powerful AI will become, but how humans themselves will change while living alongside AI every day. The more technology advances, the more we realize that what makes humans special has never been knowledge alone. It is our ability to imagine, to feel, to emotionally connect with others, and to create meaning from things that may seem ordinary. AI can write essays and generate thousands of answers within seconds, but it has never truly experienced loneliness, failure, hope, or loss the way a real human being has. And perhaps those experiences are exactly what give depth to human thought. In the future, many jobs may change, and many skills may become less important than they are today. But the ability to think independently, create new ideas, and deeply understand people will remain incredibly valuable. Perhaps the ultimate goal is not to become better than AI, but to become a deeper and more thoughtful version of yourself every single day. If you enjoy content about psychology, human thinking, the brain, and how people are changing in the age of technology, don't forget to follow the channel and join us for the next videos ahead.